Welcome back, guys, to Rider 19.1, and boy do we have a special video for you today.
Defensive riding.
One of the most essential aspects of being a rider that rides long into his or her old age is knowing how to be a defensive rider. Keep in mind, this is not a run-of-the-mill video about high-vis jackets or how to be seen. Sure, those things are very valid, and I hope by now that we're past those points. This video is about advanced learning and becoming a ninja at focus and evasion. So stay tuned because this video might just save your life. Now, I've been riding for a little over 30 years and sometimes even in the most extreme conditions. This has forced me to develop a set of coping skills if I wanted to survive and thrive. And today, I'm going to be sharing those skills with you. I've had a few spills or two. However, it was due to my own haste, stupidity, ego. But I can thankfully say that even in the worst case scenario, I never had any broken bones and was able to get up, dust myself off, and ride home. Now, let's get on with it. What is defensive riding? And the simplest way I can explain this concept is to think of it as being motorcycle martial arts. Now, let's not just run out there, buy a ninja. It's not about buying a ninja. It's about becoming a ninja and becoming one with your motorcycle. Let's face it, we're probably not going to become a Sara Lazito whose bike mastery is on another level. But that doesn't mean we can't become bike ninjas in our own right. So, here's what it's gonna take.
Extreme observation.
Even before I jump on my bike, I have passively scanned the bike and the surrounding area around the bike for the slightest abnormalities like ground surface conditions, inclination, stationary objects, obstacles, cars, and I make a mental note of the position and location of the objects in motion or that even have the possibility of motion, like people standing around talking and parked drivers maybe on their phone, cats with bushy tails, dogs licking their bungholes, chickens running around, whatever may decide to come and F up my day. I have made a mental note of it and I know exactly how far it is away from me. So if that person should start walking towards me, if that driver should start driving, I already know how much time it's going to take for those objects to come towards me. I've made a mental snapshot of my environment, and so I now have a sixth sense of what's going on around me. All that's required at this point is to do a little shoulder check, look in my mirrors, and off I go. If there was a possibility of movement behind me, I've noticed it well in advance and timed it so I can rest in my judgment that either I wait for whatever object has started moving or will start moving, or to immediately back up and take off.
Bike spatial awareness.
Knowing the space around your bike is essential. And more often than not, we have more space than we think we have. So if we don't know the boundaries of our bike, it's fear-inducing. You think, oh my God, how am I going to get through that space? But you actually have the space on the left and on the right to get through that very tight space that you think you might not. And that might save you in a crunch when you're in a panic. Because if you think you don't have the space, you'll probably just, let the bike go or something or crash or give up. But if you know exactly how much space you have, you will be able to get out of a really hairy situation when it comes down to the millimeters. I suggest that if you want to practice this, go to a parking lot, take some pool noodles, set them up, and then try to get as close to the pool noodles as possible. That would be a super practice.
Power and potential.
Knowledge of my latent power potential is potentially powerful knowledge and reduces latency. I use my bike's potential often. So that would mean either getting it up to speed or coming to a quick stop. Think of it like performing katas in karate. It's a repetitive practice of certain moves, or dodging the ball in dodgeball is practicing full force movements for defensive evasion of the opponent's strike. So, if you don't practice moving swiftly to change direction in the blink of an eye, you're a sitting duck. If someone's throwing the ball at you and it's coming towards you and you just hesitate for even a split second, the ball's not stopping. The ball's going to hit you. It's coming right at you. And you got to immediately evade that ball in that second. So you don't have time to think. You just have to react in that moment. And you have to be prepared that that ball's coming. You go whoo out of the way and, you're safe. So you have to implement extremely fast evasive actions in order to move out of the strike zone. And that's how it is on the motorcycle as well. So knowing instinctively how fast you can move your extended body, which means you and your bike, out of harm's way, that's paramount. Practicing max acceleration from a standstill, downshifting and accelerating, and stopping in the shortest distance possible makes you learn the capabilities and limitations of your machine. This is something you need to be comfortable with and a skill you need to rely on, not something that terrifies you. If the thought of this terrifies you, well, you're not ready. Go to a car park and start practicing. After this video, of course. Needless to say, learn to lean the bike over also, side to side really quickly, which is basically, okay, you start at slower speeds and then faster speeds. So what I mean is, if you've done a Western driving license, they teach you this and it's called door avoidance. So it's the same thing. You see a door opening, or you imagine a door opening in front of you, and you have to quickly evade that door. So you shift the handlebar, you push the bike from under you to one side, and then you quickly recover from that. So counterbalancing, learning to counterbalance and move the bike under you very, very quickly is something that you need to practice, because you never know when you're going to need it. So you might as well have the practice of doing that. And so you're not terrified and you don't just go head on into that door. Now that brings us to speed. The first thing people imagine when you so much as say the word speed are hellraisers on liter bikes and hooligans doing power wheelies at 200 kilometers down the highway, or some dudes trying to knee down around blind corners and encroaching on the other side of the road. Well, I classify that as rash or dangerous riding, and those fools will eventually learn the hard way, and hopefully they don't get too seriously injured when they do learn their lesson. But these people are giving motorcyclists and motorcycling a bad name.
What's wrong with you?
No motorbikes in the Quilter Forest Park.
What's wrong with you?
No motorbikes in the Quilter Forest Park.
Hold on a second.
My life. You're ruining my
Hold on a
life.
second.
You've ruined my whole day.
Fatality. Takeda. Flawless victory.
This behavior has nothing to do with our topic today of defensive riding. Frankly, it's extremely offensive riding. Controlled speed, on the other hand, is your friend. Learn to carry just the right amount and it will be safer than if you didn't. Because the motorcycle is more stable at higher speeds due to its gyroscopic effect of the tires.
So for example, if we were to spin this wheel here, you'll notice it's hanging on one point, but if I let go of it, then it maintains its stability and its position, regardless of the fact that it's actually hanging on one side. That is the gyroscopic effect.
And it wants to stay upright. So for example, if you're going through a puddle on a backcountry road and the puddle hides some moss lurking underneath on the ground. Now, you decide to go slowly and safely, and then you're most certainly going to slip and lose traction because you're not carrying enough or the right amount of speed. Even if you did lose traction for a moment, when you're at the right speed, the gyroscopic effect of the tires will keep you upright and will keep you going through that puddle till your motorcycle finds its feet.
Momentum is your friend. The slower you go in the sand, the harder it will be for you to control your bike. The more momentum you have, yes, it's scarier, of course, because obviously you have higher speed, the swaps feel a little bit more aggressive. But with the momentum, the bike will straighten itself out. The slower you go, the more the front tire will dig into the sand, become really nervous, you start to lose your balance, your feet come off the foot peg, and at that point, it's almost impossible for you to make it through a sand section without dropping the bike.
So your chances of falling or having an accident are less if you go at the right speed rather than trying to go safe. So let's look at another more practical circumstance. If you're riding too far under the speed limit and slowing the flow of traffic behind you, especially here in Germany, you're likely to irritate the cars behind you and force them to try and overtake you. Now, an overtaking car or van, or worst case scenario, a truck, is very dangerous and very risky because it causes wind gusts that can destabilize your bike in the moment and cause a lot of panic and fear.
Right here, we're going by these trucks. Ooh. That buffeting off of these trucks is amazing. Wow.
Now, not to mention that if there are some oncoming cars and it's just a small country road, 2-lane, and that guy has miscalculated his speed, well, that could raise a whole lot of new problems that you're going to have to negotiate. So, you should always be riding at the appropriate speed limit, and moreover reaching the speed limit as quickly as possible. Why, you ask? Because this shows the other motorists on the road, don't try and overtake me because you won't be able to go fast enough. So they'll hang back and they won't tailgate you to go faster because they understand that you are capable of going the speed limit. And it's also much better if you put as much distance between you and the car behind you as possible. In other words, if you're thinking that I'm riding slower because it's more safe and a crash will be less painful or deadly, think again. You've already lost the battle in your mind and fear has gripped you. So fear is bad. You should be in the safety of a car parking lot practicing till there's no more fear, and then you're the master of your motorcycle and not the other way around. This brings us to the next point. Well, now I'm not going to elaborate too much on this point because I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but there are a few things on a motorcycle that I will address. Like if something is distracting me, like a low fuel warning or service warning or low battery or anything wrong with the machine that makes me insecure and plays on my mind, well, I make sure that I take care of that as soon as possible, so as to free up as much mental RAM as possible for more important visual and auditory information. Because remember, you're constantly scanning and you're constantly listening if you are in the zone. So one tip I can give you here is that knowing your switchgear and your dash functions, that also plays a role when you're riding. Most bikes today are loaded with a lot more tech, and not knowing where things are or pressing the wrong button or menu diving, that introduces fear, and that fear and panic is the opposite of defensive riding. So take the time to familiarize yourself with the controls, and you should be able to change them without actually looking down at the switchgear. Now, many motorcycles today come with mobile connectivity where you can see messages and other distracting things. My advice is just don't connect them. Don't connect them. As far as possible, have your phone in your bag unless you're using it for navigation and you need it on your handlebar. Okay, but phones are designed in nature to distract you. Phone call. Hello?
Hallo, guten Tag. Tag, mein Name von der Solarkoro.
They're designed in nature to alert you. They're designed in nature to bring attention to themselves. So if you're easily distracted like me, then in the wrong moment, at some time, you could be putting yourself or somebody else in harm's way and in danger. So avoid it as much as possible. Just put your phone in your bag and, reduce the amount of distractions you have around you, because there's a lot that's going on around you anyways, and you do tend to get distracted by things around you and also things in your own head. So you don't need one more. So let's move on to another topic called shock. Shock. Boom. Guess you weren't expecting that, were you? Being a defensive rider is all about timely action and not unwanted reflex actions. So if you're someone who gets easily spooked or is jumpy or has a low shock tolerance, it's time to learn to absorb and disperse those emotions quickly so as not to react incorrectly in the moment. Most accidents are unexpected, otherwise they'd be called incidents and not accidents. So learn to cultivate this shock tolerance and act correctly faster rather than having an incorrect involuntary reflex. Now, different people may have different ways of improving their shock tolerance. I don't know, watching jump scare movies and learning to control your shock is one way of probably doing it. So if you're someone who has involuntary reactions, if someone says something really loud, or does something that spooks you in the moment, and you have these violent reactions to that, well, that's not going to fly on a motorcycle, because you have to be able to absorb that shock very quickly and move on emotionally, getting over that shock faster so as to react correctly in the moment. Because if you are in that moment, in that brief time frame where every second and millisecond counts, you being able to get over your shock is going to be the difference between life and death. Overstimulation is something we need to guard ourselves against, because it's more of a silent killer, and we tend to get complacent when we're overwhelmed and overstimulated. So here are a few things to watch out for. 1. Noise. Too much ambient noise, like constant honking in some major cities, can disturb your zen. It definitely disturbs mine. If you live in such an environment, make it a point to use ear protection inside your helmet. It helps keep the noise out and reduce road rage and stress. And I used to use my in-ear headphones, but you could use the earplugs or the ones that you get on the airplanes. But when I was using my in-ear headphones, I was not listening to music, but I would keep them in so I could listen to the navigation more clearly and block out the, loud traffic noises. Eventually, my ears would adjust to the headphones in my ears and the dampening of the sound, and they would actually become more sensitive, and that's a good result. So the second point is wind noise. If your helmet is not insulated enough from wind noise, it can cause ear fatigue and even deafness. Now, ear fatigue leads to stress, and stress leads to careless riding. Same goes for loud exhausts, and again, wearing ear protection and getting a better insulated helmet is the way to go.
With its low noise levels earning a spot on the list. Moving on to the sport touring, we have the Shoei NXR2, an update and a classic design offering enhanced noise isolation and aerodynamics. Right behind it is the HSA Arva 71, a release that improves on its predecessor in both comfort and quietness.
Heat and freeze stress. If you are ever caught off guard and it either becomes way too hot or it's way too cold, then you're not functioning at optimum. And then you tend to take bigger risks just to get to your destination faster.
11 hours in today. I've got 10 more K of sand dunes. But I don't know how to pick that up. Just imagine me in the dark, in the desert, on my own, feeling pretty rough because I'm got a lot of heat exhaustion.
This heat stress really makes you lose your cool, and that's when you don't make good decisions. You sort of tend to cut corners. You don't care about, what's going on in that moment because the heat and freeze stress has got to you, and now you are in a compromised mindset. Night riding. Most of us motorcyclists don't ride in the night. We avoid it as much as we can. But if you are caught in the night sometimes having to ride or being forced to ride in an area which you don't know the turns, and you are easily blinded by the oncoming traffic, well, this can be really, really stressful and can cause unnecessary accidents just because of that stress. So if you are blinded, maybe it's drizzling, maybe there's some water on your visor and the lights are just blurring out and you're seeing patterns instead of the road, well then focus on the side of the road, the white line that's on the side of the road, and keep your eyes there rather than straight ahead, which is absorbing more light from the oncoming car. And that would help a lot. And if you can preempt it by keeping a pair of glasses that reduce glare in your backpack or in your car or whatever it is, if you are easily blinded by oncoming traffic, then it will destroy your zen straight away. Now we come to an extremely, extremely important point: emotional balance. Whether you're extremely happy, excited, sad, angry, or worried, you're automatically suspending your ability to ride defensively. That's just a fact. You're caught up in emotion and therefore your focus is no longer on the road and the environment. This is a major source of accidents. So stop, calm down completely and continue. Pull off on the side of the road. Have it out with yourself. Either you're happy, jump around, clap your hands, do whatever you want to do, but then calm down before you jump on your motorcycle.
Oh, I'm so excited!
Here's one of my favorite YouTubers, Safi Sprocket.
So far to get here.
As you can see, she's really, really happy, elated, and excited in this video.
We are so close. Woo! I feel alive. I feel more.
She's going through so many emotions right now.
Last 13 days. Maybe it's the good night's sleep. Maybe it's the fact that I actually have had several meals in the space of 12 hours. Who's to say? But what I can tell you is that this is awesome.
I was now just a few minutes away from my target. I felt so over the moon. I couldn't believe that I'd undertaken such an incredible journey. As I started to pack away my camera gear, suddenly the strongest gust of wind came out of nowhere and blew me off the side of the road with the bike landing on top of me.
And that's where the inevitable happens. So being a defensive rider is about being able to be in a calm and relaxed state so as to be able to focus in the moment and sense potential threats ahead of time. It's about predicting the future by observing the present. Anything that causes you to become emotional is a dead giveaway you're not riding defensively. You're distracted, and that will put you in reaction mode rather than action mode. And that's not good enough.
Lofting is lifting or lightening the front wheel to avoid the impact of a trail obstacle. For example, a pothole, a washout, a cross rut, an embedded rock, or an exposed tree root. I loft because I want to protect myself and I want to protect my bike. I don't want a dented front rim and I don't want to lose control of my motorcycle. Lofting the front wheel can help mitigate the impact from a trail obstacle. Lofting is a technique that can be used on any trail, anytime. I use lofting on a trail when my front wheel is going to be impacted, a cross rut or an embedded rock or an exposed root. I don't want my front wheel to be impacted by that obstacle.
So when you're driving defensively, your thoughts become passive and they're in the background and they're not of any consequence. You simply know that they are just passing thoughts like passing cars and they don't stir up emotions within you. So remember this acronym, CARS, calm and relaxed state. So let's look at an example here. If you see the car ahead of you, driving too slow or behaving in an erratic way, weaving all over the place, you can be sure that you have either a distracted driver or worse, drunk driver ahead of you, and now you have two options. Drop back and create more distance between you and the car, or overtake the car safely, and this means as quickly as possible, giving the driver a wide berth and disappearing before he has the opportunity to even react. Then create as much distance between you and the car as possible. Now, if you choose option 2, which is to overtake the car, make sure you follow through with that decision and that you have calculated all the possible risks before you engage overtake mode. Then drop a gear and disappear.
We can't clear it, Michael. We're too close.
Let's go for it!
Now, this might catch the driver off guard, but by then you're well out of harm's way. Similarly, riding out of perpendicular intersections are crucial because you are most vulnerable and it is extremely important to get this timing right. As a rule of thumb, I will not cut across an intersection until I'm 100% sure that I have scanned and assessed the traffic situation to my satisfaction. Then, and only then, will I pull out and cross over. This is standard road safety. But as a defensive rider, I will now proceed with speed so as not to be perpendicular to oncoming traffic for more time than absolutely necessary. And then keep accelerating to make sure that I am up to speed with the traffic as quickly as possible. This prevents any cars coming up from behind me to have to slow down for me as I have accelerated till our relative speeds are now the same. However, in major congested cities with chock-a-block disorganized traffic, the case may be slightly different. So pay attention there. Now, are there downsides to riding like this? Yes. In certain parts of the world, for example, Germany, if you zoom past cars and they didn't notice you, you could piss off a few people because people are used to predictability. Here, drivers are more conscious and courteous to riders, so if you perform evasive maneuvers when they are not required, you will shock them and you will take away their zen. So it's important to give road users here a clear indication of what you plan on doing. So unless you're sure the driver is a distracted driver or is inebriated, hold back the urge to take away his courtesy.
Progress, not perfection.
Skills take time to develop, so you'll have to be patient and practice before you reach higher levels. I too have to constantly practice to keep my skills sharp. So, in conclusion, riding defensively is a state of mind. It requires keen observance and requires you to be in a state of calm preparedness. It is instinctively predicting the future, prepared for the worst, but taking pleasure in never having to use plan B because plan A always works out. It's accounting for other people's mistakes and seeing them coming from a mile away. It's not giving the opportunity to some people to overlook you or not to see you, because by the time they've done that, by the time they notice you, you're gone. So guys, I hope this helps you stay safe out there. And there's a lot more points that I will cover maybe in another video. If you think I've missed some very important points, please leave it in the comments. I'd love to hear them, and we will do another video on this at a later stage. Thanks for watching. Rider 191 out.